thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Justice requires us to remember when any citizen denies his fellow, saying his color is not mine, or his beliefs are strange and different. In that moment, he betrays America.
Be nice, patient, and continue to pray. In 100 or 200 years, the problem will work itself out.
I believe that truth is the glue that holds government together. Not only our government, but civilization itself.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished, and the rights of one man are threatened.
America is never wholly herself unless she is engaged in high moral principle. We as a people have such a purpose today. It is to make kinder the face of the nation and gentler the face of the world.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
Through much of the last century, America's faith in freedom and democracy was a rock in a raging sea.
Starting today, we must pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and begin again the work of remaking America.
Oh, well, hello. Wednesday evening, and we've got more case review. You know, we went over one of Donald Trump's cases yesterday. We went over E. Jean Carroll's civil lawsuits for defamation and assault. And, well, there's so much more. We couldn't fit that into one. We couldn't fit it into one. So I like to do politics a little bit on Wednesday, and I thought, hey, well, everything about Donald Trump ends up being political, right? Although we're going to find out that a lot of it has to do with before and during and after, and not exactly as, well, as on the campaign right now. You know, Donald J. Trump is campaigning to be president again, and so he gives speeches regularly. So he's on the podium every day calling everything against him a witch hunt, everything. And so the point of this is not exactly to slam him, although it's going to appear so because they're all lawsuits against him. They're all investigations against him, civil, criminal, and ongoing investigations against one man. So it does look a little biased. My politics do lean a little more to the left than to the right, although on most things I'm central. I'll admit. I see points on both sides all the time. And just to clarify the record, I am currently registered as an independent because I'm not happy, like many Americans, with the progress in what's been done on both sides of our political landscape, so to speak. So, on that, I think that we'll just go like straight to it and just start them all. But for those of you that want more information on it, I did post 3 links in regards to the ongoing investigations in the description. And I'm going to be reading from the first one a lot, the one from Politico, because they actually lay out all the players and just give you a synopsis. They also have great links to the original documents, which I all have, in which anyone wants any of them in regards to any of the cases or investigations we're going to talk about. You can contact me and I'll get you links, okay? Because I do like to share all the information. I want you to know where I get it so that you can make informed decisions of your own opinions about the stuff that we discuss. Thank you for my moderators who came on such an odd day at such an odd time. Hey, Mrs. Cassandra. Some that came in after I was posting hellos. Hey, Wrecker. Wish I could stay and watch, but I can't. So here's a bunch of other otters without the strawberries. Okay, I hope Milky doesn't show up. Hey, Rec. Mrs. Cassandra, nice to see you. Jujubee, it's nice to see you too. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And to everyone I said hello before, thank you all for being here. And to everybody who watches later, All right. So on that first banner, yay team. Thank you. Okay. Let's start with the first one. And it's not going to be the one that just happened. Okay. We're going to go back in time a little bit. Let's start. Y'all know I'm on the East Coast. So the New York civil fraud case, which was filed in September of 2021 by Attorney General Letitia James. Okay. Now, this fraud case is a $250 million civil case that the state is bringing against the Trump organization, naming Donald Trump, naming his 3 children, okay, for practicing fraudulent business practices for multiple years, calling it the art of the steal. Okay, that indictment was quite lit. This was an ongoing investigation for years. There's been multiple accusations against the organization. Now, this civil lawsuit has a judge, Arthur Engeron, who's been maintaining it, and it does have a trial date of October of 2023, which recently they moved. Of course, the Trump and his attorneys, they do not want the trial to happen right away. They don't need any more civil litigation. They're already in there with Eugene Carroll. They've got all these criminal indictments that we're going to talk about coming down the line. I mean, legal fees alone that this man is looking at are astronomical. Just keeping which lawyer's doing what is quite difficult. Okay, I can imagine the juggling. Can you imagine what his cell phone is like every day? Wow. Is like, who's calling about what? Anyway, recent activity on this particular case, they did name the 3 children along with Donald J. Trump. Both of his sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, are still named. However, Ivanka Trump has been released from the case based on findings by the judge for statute of limitations. The investigation was so long and going back all the way to 2009, 2014, 2016. It was ordered by the judge that she would be released. Ivanka Trump would be released because she was no longer with the organization. And the events that had her name tied into them were actually not going to be presented anyway because of statute of limitations. So she's been removed. Good news for Ivanka. Not so good news for the brothers or Donald Trump, because that's going forward. Okay. In the other bit that's very interesting about this is, you may recall hearing in the news that there was another case in New York against the business that was settled in early this year as guilty. The head of the accounting department, the big CEO, pled guilty, took the charges, took the fall for all of the misdeeds in filing taxes in regards to a Trump organization there. Now, there was a huge $1 million fine put down. There was a restitution put forward. So actually the statement by Trump's attorney kind of rings a little hollow now. And as I quote, let me just say, Alan Garten, who was the general counsel for the Trump organization when this was filed, had previously said that all Trump business practices are above board as always. Always, okay? Everything was done in strict compliance with applicable law and under the advice of counsel and tax experts, okay? That was from a quote from the New York Times, okay? All applicable taxes were paid and no party received any undue benefit. But that assertion, like I said, kind of fell in the toilet, so to speak, when in January, they were fined $1.6 million for tax fraud in what New York prosecutors described as a tax scheme that stretched more than a decade, from 2005 to 2018. There's another civil lawsuit alleging that Mr. Trump used the Celebrity Apprentice TV show to promote multi-level marketing schemes. There are a lot of investigations on the East Coast, especially in New York, where he has lived and done business for almost his whole life, okay, before getting more active into politics and moving into Florida. Now he's got dual residency in both states. Anyway, they are appealing this suit, trying to get it tossed, but both the sons have agreed to be deposed. That goes all the way back to early spring of 2022. We have to see if all that happened. But anyway, we are definitely going to be seeing a trial in October because they just said it's going forward. It did not get stayed. I'm looking for more current filings on it, and I will be updating you as it comes into play. All right. Also, in October of 2021, in New York, in the Westchester District Attorney's Office started an investigation into financial irregularities surrounding the golf course. And the Westchester District Attorney, is in charge of that, and that was ongoing as of the end of the year. Of last year. I have to see if it's still going on currently right now. Through 2022, it was an active investigation, but I'm not able to find a current lead on it, so I don't want to say it's. I can't see that they dismissed it or that they closed it. I don't see that. I also don't see any current activity in regards to it. Okay. But that's a civil suit. Now, Letitia James, she takes a lot of heat for filing this as civil. Okay. But her contention is that they owe the state so much money in back taxes and for doing things illegally. They've had multiple businesses that it would be extraordinarily cost heavy for them to go forward in criminal cases on every single one of these. The investigation has gone on and on and on. They do get to use the recent court case against the organization itself, to where they were found guilty and fined, in the testimony of that particular chief of business dealings, or CEO, executive officer of that Trump organization, who is serving, and I'm sure gave some testimony in regards to all of this, because part of being able to plea and to get a deal is that you have to allocate. So you have to say what was done. You have to actually tell everything that was going on. So it should be quite interesting. Very interesting. Hello, Carrie. Welcome. Okay. Hey, always, Mrs. Cassandra. Nice to see you both. Okay, so there's more. There's more. I know many of you listen to the news. There's so much more. So on Letitia James, let me just check the chat really quick to see if you have any questions on this particular one before I go forward. Yeah, I mean, in Westchester, it does say Westchester County. We do have Bedminster. We have a golf course here in New Jersey, but Westchester, for some reason, yes, that's still, yep, from New York, Westchester. Yep, that's what the article is saying. Yep. I wish I could be rich enough to commit tax fraud, right? Real world problems. Yes, Craven? Yes, absolutely. Okay. All right. So let's move on. It gets more involved. Lots of paper here. Okay. The first indictment that was for a criminal offense, okay, was falsified business records. That came out of Alvin Bragg. District Attorney Alvin Bragg filed this, also from New York. This happened in April, okay, of this year. Let me see. Hold on one second. I'm trying to see there, Mrs. Cassandra. I'm trying to find it. Way back in 2003, we sold a piece of handcrafted furniture to Don Jr. Was the only credit card that was rejected in the history of our business. His second try was good. Is that on his son? Wow. Yeah. Yeah. But they're such good businessmen, right? Thank you, Janae. And thank you, Mrs. Cassandra, for highlighting it for me. I'm sorry I missed it, Janae. I didn't go far enough back into the comments. And also Craven says, good thing he's got PACs raising money for his campaign court fees, allegedly. Yes, but there's still investigation into how the PACs are working. That might be a problem, actually. We may see. Mm-hmm. Okay. That was interesting, Janae. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay. You'll all remember that when this actual falsified business records indictment came down from Alvin Bragg, also of New York, it was like, it was kind of deflating. I was a bit disappointed because there was so much more going on. We hear about all these investigations into election fraud and the January 6th event at the Capitol. There was so much more, happening, that when Alvin Bragg brought this one forward as being attestable, we were like, who cares? Because back in 2016, when Trump was running for office, he, that scandal came forward. This is directly related to Michael Cohen and Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, okay, and several other model actresses that he may be involved with. There was even a concierge involved in like keeping some information, quiet. But anyway, it resulted in 34 felony counts of actually mislabeling money on purpose. So it through campaign, moving money around and calling it something else than what it was. Okay. Now, technically, to give somebody money not to tell a story or to buy a story from someone so it doesn't get printed, although shady, is not necessarily illegal. Could you guys agree with that? But when you organize with several people to conspire to keep information out of the campaign finance because you know it's wrong what you're doing, if you're using campaign funds, that is, okay, and conspiring to do something of this nature, that's where these charges come in, that they actively worked together to mislabel the information on purpose, to bury it, to hide it through the records of the campaign distributions. Now that is illegal, and that is why we have an indictment, because no one is above the law. Now everyone was like, oh my gosh, is that all you got? Like, that's ridiculous. That's so far away. 2016, like, come on, it was kind of the final weeks of the presidential campaign. Like, so what? At the time, Michael Cohen was his personal attorney and labeled a fixer. Okay. It's said that he paid $130,000 to Stormy Daniels in October 2016 of that year. Okay. That's from the indictment. Okay. And then while he was in office in the White House, Trump reimbursed Cohen in a series of installment payments processed by Trump's company, mislabeling them all as, something different. Prosecutors say Trump fraudulently disguised those installments as corporate legal expenses in violation of New York state law. This is where it comes in. Now, we're not prosecuting him for a sex scandal. We could care less. Okay. Stormy Daniels was a porn star, and she claimed to have an affair with him while he was married to Melania. But hey, what are we going to... Is that illegal? No, that's not what it's about. Okay. It's currently indicted. A Manhattan grand jury voted to indict Trump based on the information that was revealed, based on the payments and the checks and all of the information. And the reason it took so long is, remember, he was president. He did get voted into office. Okay. And when you do the legal stuff, you need to dot the I's across the T's. These are financial records that had to be gone over. They had to actually prove this. And they had to prove this conspiracy thought that they did it with intent. That was the plan from the start. So it took some time to document. And I don't think Alvin Bragg would have brought this forward if he didn't have a pretty solid case. I don't think there's any way to deny this part that happened, because you have all written record to back it up. That's what happens in financial crimes, right? It's the actual trail that nails you. Okay. It's the dotting of the I's and crossing the T's. It's looking into the financial records. They don't lie. You can't post date them. You can't back them up. They happen when they happen. Okay. They're all there permanently. And when you get someone looking into forensic accounting to go back and find out, pretty much if you've done it the wrong way, you're going to get nailed. There are 34 felony counts on this, violating New York law on corporate record keeping. Trump turned himself in, of course, and was processed, and he pled not guilty, and he's released without any bail. Well, not unusual for a criminal case. Okay. The money that was used was his own. He didn't defraud anyone to use it. There's nothing here. He's not a danger to anything. Okay. The defense team and the prosecutors are dealing with evidentiary issues and litigating, of course, and pretrial disputes, including a bid from Trump to try to transfer the case to a federal court where he thought he would get some protection based on the fact that he was running for office. This trial is actually scheduled for March 25th of 2024. Okay. The charges are from the New York Penal Code 17510, which is falsifying of business records in the first degree. All 34 counts are. Okay. It's a bare bones crime. Okay. It's a misdemeanor usually. But it becomes a felony when the defendant falsified the records with the intent of furthering a separate underlying crime, which was to hide the payments to Michael Cohen. They have not actually said in specific what penal code that underlying crime indicates, but they are indicating that there was intent to hide all of this and that it was done on purpose. So they're going to have to list that. Okay. Now, what I like about the political article that I told you about is that it clearly points out some key issues. Okay. First of all, could he be pardoned for this if found guilty? Well, because falsifying business records is a state crime, no president can actually pardon you. Only the governor of New York could pardon him. And since the crime is against New York and may involve like not paying taxes and things like that, or some kinds of fines, it's highly unlikely. Trump's legal team on this one is Todd Blanche, Susan Nichelis, and Joe Tacopina. Okay. Key players that you'll hear the names of are Michael Cohen, David Pecker, and Stormy Daniels, and Karen McDougal. Okay, another model actress that comes up in it. Okay, it's interesting. Okay, but it is mild compared to some of the other things that are going on. Just something he's gonna have to deal with. The strengths are that Cohen, the man who arranged the payments and turned against Trump and gave testimony because of his own court cases and things, he's likely to testify for the prosecution. Prosecutors have evidenced other hush money payments that Trump arranged to cover up damaging stories in the run of 26 in when he was running in 2016. It suggests a coordinated effort to help his campaign rather than merely to avoid personal embarrassment. It looks like it was campaign oriented, and that can be where it turns into a felony. A key issue that could determine whether the Daniels payoff violated election law. If it violated election law, that's a felony. Then we become a much more serious case. Okay. Weaknesses of the case are, trying to say that business records turning into felonies and linking them to underlying federal election is a dicey thing. It is also a novel legal theory that, trying to do this workaround. Okay. Trump's legal team could portray that Daniels' payoff as a private matter. Charges themselves as technical bookkeeping violations, although everyone was repeatedly done that way. I can't say you can go, oops, I made a mistake on that one when you made a mistake on all 34 of them. But, well, actually, there's 11 of them. Each one has 3 specific penal codes applied to it. So, there's that. Okay. But you could see how this is not what I would consider one of the strongest cases against him. Technically, it's wrongdoing and no one is above the law. It does look a little to me, especially when you have the other side saying witch hunt, witch hunt. I'm like, well, you just gave him something to talk about because this is akin to me. This case is akin to Hunter Biden's laptop, as far as I'm concerned. Like, this is it. It's although legal, he's got something here, Alvin Bragg. I mean, I don't think he would go forward. I don't think he's a foolish man, and it's taken a long time to actually put this case together. I'm sure there's a lot more to come out. And since it's not in trial, we haven't seen all the evidence. We don't know actually what they're going to say. And at any time, that indictment can be expanded upon. And he could be charged with further crimes based on the evidence. So we'll have to see. Currently, misdemeanor. Not exactly earth-shattering. It's not going to shake the room, so to speak. Hey, Brilliant. Hey, West Side Girl Reacts. Nice to see you. I did miss the premiere. I did schedule to see you, but I slept through my alarm again. You go quite early for me. I'm quite the night owl and I sleep very late. But I do have it for my replay, Westside. And I ask everybody, could one of the mods drop that channel link for me, please? For Westside Girl Reacts. It's very interesting content. I ask you guys to go check it out. It's quite amusing at times. So they do reaction videos. It's really cool. All right. Okay, so now, no, I appreciate you too. And I apologize for not being at the premiere. I don't make live chats a lot anymore. Based on my schedule. And I think most of the other creators that I know, they kind of understand that. And when I can, I will. It's definitely. Thank you, Mrs. Cassandra. Thank you. I love supporting people who are out there doing their own thing. Like, YouTube is a big, wide world, open for everybody. And I want everybody, to go check out some of the most unique ones and interesting. All right. So let's move on. Okay. Mar-a-Lago, the documents. Okay. In charge of this one, Jack Smith. Okay. Special prosecutor. Okay. Which was put into play because of everything that was going on with Trump. Too many investigations. We wanted it to be fair. Trump's side saying, well, because it's a Democratic House, because, there's a Democratic president and he's in charge of the DOJ. This is a witch hunt. This is unfair. This is when special prosecutors are needed, okay? Because the president can't call the special prosecutor and say, you can't go after that, or you should go after that. They can't order them around the same way. They're independent, okay? Independent under the rule of law, okay? It's serious, okay? Very serious when you have a special prosecutor. And Jack Smith is a serious dude, okay? Although the Twitter account for Jack Smith, who is not really Jack Smith, he's actually funny as heck if you're following it. He cracks me up every day. But this classified document case, okay, came about last year, June 9th, 2023. It was unsealed. They had been trying for a whole year or more since Trump left office to acquire documents, that were currently in his possession that needed to be returned. Okay. Let me just, this one really gets me. Okay. Because, all right. They're accusing Trump of taking highly sensitive national security documents when he left the White House in January 2021. They are saying that he stashed those documents haphazardly throughout his Mar-a-Lago resort and obstructed the government's repeated attempts to retrieve them. That is all very well documented in the unsealed indictment that every media put out. So there's clear copies of that. If anyone hasn't read that indictment and wants to get into the legal part of it, let me know. I can give you a Google link for that indictment. It's well laid out. You can see through that. And I will just say, I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible, but here's the nuts and the bolts of it. Everybody says, well, many presidents and many government officials have documents, okay, and have taken them and this and that. I think we need to actually not compare apples to oranges. And the reason I say that it's apples to oranges instead of apples to apples is that although the apple would be the documents themselves, I'd say it doesn't go because of the type of documents, highly classified all the way up to respondings and looking into wars and actually plans, okay? Nuclear information, okay? We're talking the most sophisticated, most classified documents you can get that you need extreme clearance. Not everybody, not even everybody in the White House or in his cabinet would be able to look at these documents that were recovered from Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. Okay. So it's a little bit different. Also, you have to take into account how they're dealing with it. Everyone else who's asked to return documents says, "Oh, my bad, here they are." Okay. We have the archival system for a reason, for our protection. And when I say our, I mean all of us, we the people, the United States as a whole, our country. Okay. Um, it's for us. Okay. And so when they say, "Hey, that belongs to us, we need it back," the last thing you want to think is that you're going to have to sue someone to get them back because they're going to like run off into the hills with them, mine, 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 like that cartoon bird. And, just like, no, they're mine. I don't care. I didn't do anything. And just fight the system. And that's what keeps happening here. Unfortunately, if they would just be a little bit more reasonable about things, but here we go, we push, we lie, we maneuver. We got signed legal documents from attorneys that say all of the records were returned. And then you go back and you find boxes more. We found boxes in bathrooms, boxes put on display in the dining area near the stage where people were having mass dinners of all kinds of people coming and going. They were not secured. They were not taken care of. They were found haphazardly in all kinds of places. They were returned piecemeal here and there just to get people off their track. And now there's even video evidence, okay? And many of other people are being charged too in a conspiracy to actually keep this because recently, those charges have been upgraded, okay? The indictment has been revised, okay? All right. Well, that apples to apples thing, when people bring that up, it does annoy me because it's not the same. Yes, Pence and both Biden had documents. Both Pence and Biden did actively return them willingly right away and offered up to search all of their residences, offices, and anything else they wanted to make sure they didn't have anything else. Okay. Cooperation is the difference. That's why it's not apples to apples. Okay, with a lack of cooperation, okay, and willingness to settle it, it's not apples to apples. It's apples to oranges. Okay, they might both be fruits, but they ain't the same. Okay, they're just not the same. So I'm not going to sit for any arguments on that. Yep, exactly, West Side. That might be the key. Well, they returned them. Okay, he didn't get charged with the ones he returned. Exactly, Pragmatic. He didn't. The question is, why did he obstruct? And those are the new charges. Okay. Quite serious. Quite serious. Okay. We unsealed this document in June 9th, the original. It was revised just recently, a week ago. Here we have Judge Eileen Cannon, from Florida. And she has actually had some of her rulings come up to question and taken to a higher court. We do see some stall techniques. You'll probably read in the news today a little bit more about, judges, they're just trying to get it. Trump's teams are really trying to delay everything the best that they can to make sure that he's in office before any of this gets played. But one, it would delay it. I mean, it's going to be hard to get a sitting president into a courtroom. Yeah? No, you can't. But there's nothing stopping him from running or getting voted in as long as he's just indicted. Okay. And, here we go. And in some states, it doesn't even matter if he gets criminally charged. Although one of the cases is a really kind of important in regards to that. Okay. Yeah. So I'm definitely seeing that March 20 of 2024 is the trial date. Well, Trump's team of lawyers himself are trying to get that moved as the best that they can. the best that they can. Okay. These charges that are on these classified documents case include 32 felony counts of willful retention of national defense information in violation of the Espionage Act, 6 felony counts of obstruction related crimes under U.S. Penal Code 18-15-12 and 18 U.S. Penal Code 15-19. Okay, and then there are 2 felony counts of false statements under 18 under under Penal Code of the United States number 18-1001. Okay, I'm just saying that's a lot, and they're all felonies, criminal. Okay, there's a lot. There's a lot. It's hard to dismiss something like this, don't you think? Okay, it's currently in the indicted status. Okay, unsealed. Trump did plead not guilty in June in Miami. Okay. More recently, like we said, Jack Smith's team unveiled a revised indictment, which we called superseding. In other words, they add the X because previously they had also charged I forget his first name, but Nada, one who worked with Trump in regards to the documents, in arranging things being moved around. But now one of his employees, a Carlos de Oliveira, who did give testimony to the grand jury, to the investigating team in Jack Smith's prosecution. Okay. They actually both gave testimony and they both were found wanting because video evidence themselves from Mar-a-Lago and other people or witnesses have verified that they were instrumental in removing documents, moving documents around, and that they knew they existed, even though they gave testimony that they didn't know anything. And that's a problem because they're both in pretty deep hot water right now. Okay. The Espionage Act alone makes it a crime to retain the records containing sensitive national security information. All right. Those are 32. Those 32 counts against Trump in that indictment are specific to 32 different documents that he allegedly hoarded at Mar-a-Lago and refused to give back, even though he was no longer entitled to possess them, and even though he said he didn't have them. Okay. 31 were marked classified, and many concerned foreign military capabilities, military activities, nuclear weapons. All of that is laid out in the indictment. The remaining 8 felonies arise from his efforts to stymie the investigation, including directing NATO to move boxes in the hope that neither Trump's own lawyer nor the FBI would discover some of the classified documents. And that's also where Carlos de Oliveira comes in the same, because he actually was trying to get the videos of the security cameras that exist in Mar-a-Lago. He actually talked to other employees about having those deleted. Okay, so it goes on and on. It gets quite convoluted. Okay, now, most legal experts say the strength of this case, including on the other side, the right too, they have described Smith's indictment as laying out an exceptionally persuasive case. If you read that indictment, it says step by step how things progressed, how the government tried to resolve this with Trump without it getting into a legal case, how they actually tried over and over with contact and just really tried to lay it all out. He was given a lot of grace. Is when you read that indictment, there's no witch hunt there. There is like, you left us no choice. I mean, that is what I was left with when I read that indictment. Read every word of it. And at the end, I was like, damn, this all could have been avoided. He literally left them no choice. He laughed in their face and did everything he could to make a mockery of our justice system, of our rules, and just like, that just only applies to everybody else but me. That's exactly how I felt when I was done reading it. Is like, that must be the mindset there, huh? Such entitlement. But unfortunately, in our country, we need to operate as no one is above the law, and that is no one. Yeah, there's rich people. Yeah, there's people that skirt it. You can get off with things with a good attorney or a technicality, but the process will happen because the process is on everyone. No one escapes it. Okay, no one should be above the law. Yeah, and you're representing our country. You should stand for that. I mean, that is something I have to deal with every day with this stuff. And I'm sure there's many of you that think the same. Okay. I'm saying under the Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 53, electronic media coverage of criminal proceedings, including taking photographs and broadcasting the proceedings, is prohibited in federal courtrooms and has been since the rule was adopted in 1946. Exactly. And that is why a lot of the documents are under seal, and there has to be special rules in putting this case forward. Pragmatic Crystal, thank you for that. It's very well informed, by the way. Thank you very much for sharing that with the chat, because that's going to make it very difficult. Trump is allowed to see everything, so the lawyers, they're supposed to, the jury's going to see everything. These are sophisticated, very, very classified documents, and yet in our system, everybody has a right to know everything that's going on and to see all of the evidence. It makes it quite difficult. It does, but there are ways around it. In regards to special prosecution, they can bring in people that are in charge of the documents. They can be sealed. They can look at them. They can see that they exist. They can notify it, document it, seal it, and then present that to the jury. Okay. All right. So the case does look like a persuasive case. Most everyone speaking on it legally is saying so. It contains evidence from Trump's own statements, including one caught on tape, that he knew he was not authorized to retain classified material, but he did so anyway. Evidence of obstruction, including instructing his aides to move boxes and destroy security footage, and apparently suggesting to his lawyer that he concealed documents from the FBI. He also seems to have publicly admitted that he knowingly held on to documents after he left the White House. During a particular CNN town hall just this May, Trump said that he took the documents because he was allowed to, that he had every right to. In fact, the Presidential Records Act makes clear that presidential documents are the property of the federal government, not an outgoing president. Multiple federal laws tightly control how classified documents can be viewed and stored. And unfortunately, Trump's erroneously view of that law and opinion about it is not going to save him, because ignorance of the law is never a defense in the United States. It's like, oh, well, too bad for you. You didn't know about that, or you thought you were above it, because nope, here comes the long arm of the law to tell you no. Okay. There are some weaknesses in the case, okay? While he was president, Trump had broad authority to declassify those documents. Now, that gets tossed around a lot. Did he or didn't he? What is the process? I'm not really sure what that process is or how you do it. But what you can't do is go retroactively and say, I did it if you didn't. There needs to be a trail. And to date, no trail has been produced to show that he declassified those records. Okay. There are no White House records showing so. And that stuff gets kept from presidency to presidency. Okay. The archival system itself would have those documents. Okay. The ones prosecuting him in regards to not returning them to the archival system, okay, they would have the records to show that they were declassified, and they wouldn't have wasted their time looking for them. They're busy people. To date, there's no evidence that Trump did declassify them, although he keeps saying he had the authority to do so. Yes, he did. No one denies that. But did you? Did you bother? No, we can't find it. The prosecution may have actually, it's kind of touted wildly in the legal commentary right now and all over the media, that the unlucky break is that Judge Eileen Cannon is actually in charge of this case, as she's the judge in Florida. She has broad authority over both the pace and the proceedings, and unfortunately, a slew of pretrial opinions and notions have not received favorable They're trying to say she's biased or that she's not well versed in what the actual issues are. Um, but she does have control over the disputes, and over what information obtained from Trump's lawyers can be admitted as evidence or not, and as well as the prosecution. You know what? You know that's your judge is your judge, okay, and they're just going to have to do that. Okay, in regards to, everybody always wants to know in regards to each one about who can pardon him. If Trump is reelected president, yes, he could pardon himself, although the validity of a presidential self-pardon is questionable in unsettled at the moment. That would actually end up being constitutional, go all the way up to the Supreme Court, I believe. But we will see. But the prosecution is Jack Smith, the special counsel. And on this one, Trump's legal team is Todd Blanche and Lindsay Halligan. Names that you will hear are Evan Cochran, Trump's lawyer previous, who is actually in the suit now. Walt Nauta, okay, Trump's aide and co-defendant. Okay, he is been with him for a long time. Okay, and Carlos de Olivieri, who is Mar-a-Lago's property manager and now also a co-defendant in this case. Okay, yeah, let me just double check and see if you have any questions on this one before we go to the next one. This is going to be long, very long day on this one. All right. Okay. All right. So it is true, Mousy. Some people don't have a party affiliation. I'm currently an independent. Okay. And yes, Carrie Ann, 100% law should be unbiased and balanced for all. No one is above it. And it's not just the Dems that are trying to change that, okay? The Dems are trying to change this in regards to whether it gets televised. I understand that, okay? But currently, and here's how I feel about that. And it may be surprising to you all because this is what I do. And of course, this would be wonderful to watch in a court of law, wouldn't it? To watch it play out because of the sensitivity of the documents and what it involves. We're talking espionage here. We're talking highly classified materials. I don't think the cameras should be in there. I think it's too risky. I think we need to protect that part of the procedure, actually, unless they say that none of that evidence is going to be coming out in that courtroom, that they have a separate procedure for it. I don't think it should. Okay. You know what, Carrie Ann? That's the debate on whether or not that's in there. If there is that you could not pardon yourself. While he was president, it came up. He talked about it a lot. And so it's really unsettled at this point. It really is. Trump Palpatine. No, I don't think so. Mousy says, I personally don't side with either party. I do see a lot of pointing this side is trying to do this and that side is trying to do that. I see that a lot too. Instead of actually governing for our country and doing things that's good for all of us, they're too busy pointing at each other. They did this, they did that. You want this, you want that. While no one does anything. It's rather frustrating. It really is. I do believe that's just treason. And I doubt anyone's going to be put down by a firing squad, but yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Okay, so, all right. If there's not any other questions on this one, and this one's been in the news a lot, so I understand you guys get a lot of material on this one. Okay, so so in that case, let's just move on to the next one. The next indictment that just came through in August of this year was the January 6th insurrection case. Okay, that was also Jack Smith. Okay, he is the prosecutor. Um, Now, the January 6th insurrection case, this is from the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, right? The actual indictment lays out that in the 2 months between Election Day in 2020 and January 6th, Donald Trump mounted a wide range campaign to subvert Joe Biden's victory in the presidential election and to make it invalid. Trump and his advisors spread false information about voter fraud, urged Republicans and state officials to undermine the results in states that Biden won, assembled false slates of electors, and pressured Mike Pence, the vice president, to unilaterally toss out the legitimate results. The effort culminated on January 6th when a mob of Trump supporters, or alleged Trump supporters, stormed the Capitol and disrupted the peaceful transfer of power. That is the day where the election gets ratified and everything goes forward. Okay. Trump, federal prosecutors led by, of course, Jack Smith, have charged Trump with 4 federal crimes stemming from his attempts to derail the transfer of power. He was indicted. Okay. That indictment was approved in the very first day of August by the grand jury. Okay. And they are charging him with an extraordinary conspiracy that threatened to disenfranchise millions of Americans. They are actually suing for us because they're saying he took away our right to vote. He took away our voice. He tried to tamper with the process illegally. Okay. 2 of those felony accounts, including 1 conspiracy, are for obstruction of an officially proceeding under of an official process, and that's under U.S. Code 18, number 1512. Now, there's more. There is a felony count of conspiracy to defraud the United States under U.S. Code 18, number 371. And that one is a felony count for conspiracy to defraud us, meaning took away our right to vote. Tried to say something else happened than what it did. Lie to us about the results. Okay. And then there is the felony count of conspiracy against our rights, took away our right to vote under U.S. Code 18, number 241. In other words, tried to say that my vote, your vote, anyone else's vote, if it wasn't for him, it didn't matter. And they tried to manipulate those votes. That's all illegal. That is seriously illegal. And in regards to indictments and charges, this is probably the most serious. Not only that Trump, like with the documents and everything, just like haphazardly was leaking secrets or whatever, whether the intent was there or not to commit espionage, he did put our country in danger with this. And people don't concentrate enough on that. Everybody just poo-poos about it. Like, it's just a bunch of papers. Yeah, well, information is what moves everything in the world. Come on. You don't see the risk there to have 37 boxes or whatever it was locked, put up on a stage for anybody to go by and pull papers out and read? Okay. Remember, Mar-a-Lago is where Trump rubbed elbows with everyone. Dignitaries, diplomats, people from all countries. Let's just say spies, undercovers, agents, everybody having dinner. And he just left out a smorgasbord of United States confidential information for everyone with absolutely no regard. Like it's no big deal. Worse than that, they moved some of them to the bathroom where you could sit on the throne and privately read them to your heart's content. That's snark. I don't know if that happened. There's no evidence of that happening. It's just a visual I have in my head. I found the need to share with you. Sorry. But it is serious. It is serious. The disregard for those documents is serious. And here, in messing with our election process, to say that what he wanted mattered more than our rights, in our election process. Okay. 3 separate investigations into the election process said nothing happened that would change the results. 3 separate, one of them by his own White House. And he totally disregarded all the information given to him, all of everyone he put in charge to find out the facts, and then totally ignored the facts repeatedly over and over again. For what? For his own agenda and goal to continue to be president of the United States. He just wanted to win. Now, besides the illegality of that, the federal crimes that are being committed here, crimes against all of us individually. Do you not see what that says about the character of the person who wants to run our country? And I don't know why supporters, like, I don't want to disparage him, but I'm telling you, he's not for you, the people. He says he is. But show me where he did anything for the people, for the greater good, for an agenda to move our country forward. I'm failing to see. All I see is a little bit of selfishness here. And I admit to being somewhat biased, being on the East Coast. I saw it for a long time before he even thought of running. When he dabbled in Democratic politics on the East Coast, locally, and couldn't get his way. Well, anyway, the weaknesses of this case, you know, you would think that there's not much weaknesses, but they are, because they're arguing that his statements about the election are protected by the First Amendment. He can say whatever he wants. Okay, but you can say whatever you want. You just can't say it without consequence. Okay. And he was challenging the election. He was merely relying on the advice of his lawyers. Does that mean that all his lawyers get to get prosecuted and he gets to walk free? I don't think so. Because when that many people are telling you something, you need to see both sides. And if you make the decision to carry on with the fraudulent behavior, well, just because somebody told you to, you know how that goes, right? Lemmings, don't jump off the cliff just because someone advised you to. You do have some personal responsibility for your own integrity and the own decisions that you make. So although it appears a weakness, it's not a very large one. Okay, a president seeking to impede the peaceful transfer of power is unprecedented in American history. And that's a problem, because whenever anything is unprecedented, we don't exactly have anything in our law to go forward onto how we should proceed or what the expected outcomes should be. So this is going to be an interesting one to watch. In any way, it will be precedent setting. It will be the first time anything like this happened. The law that gets settled here will go on in history forever. Okay. And will be cited over and over again, and hopefully keep others from doing something so foolish. Well, we shall see. Some legal theories that prosecutors may rely on, like conspiracy against rights and statute to the context here, they raise novel issues that have rarely been tested in court. They don't come up because it's never happened before. And that makes it risky. All right. The strength of the case is that because his efforts were so extensive, they are well documented and they're largely in public view. This case is very well documented by himself and his allies about what they did before and after the January 6th attack. Okay, many of the top aides in Trump's administration have testified to the grand jury. Many people involved in the whole situation we did the whole January 6th investigation, and that was out for the public. I've got a whole playlist of it on my channel. All of it. All of it's there. All of the evidence that they brought forward, the testimonies, what they presented, it's all there. Okay. It gives you an insight into how it happened. Okay. He went against Pence. Pence resisted the pressure. Okay. We've got the chief of staff, Mark Meadows. We've got his White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, his national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, and his senior policy advisor, Stephen Miller. Okay. there's evidence against them all, and they all have evidence to say what Trump's state of mind was at the time. And it's not going to look good. It's not going to look good. We're going to have to wait for the trial to see what evidence actually comes forward. But they're pushing forward. Okay. Again, if Trump is elected, he could pardon himself through if there is a validity of a presidential self pardon, but only him. Again, it's the prosecution team is being led by Jack Smith. In this one, Trump's legal team is Evan Corrigan. The key players are Mike Pence, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, and John Eastman. In this indictment, there are 6 unnamed co-conspirators. Unnamed may be because they have given testimony, or they're going to be charged at a later date. Okay. Let me just check on questions for this one. Okay. A lot of people did vote for him, and I can see why. Our country was in turmoil, and I understand it. This isn't about like, oh, you know, whether you voted for him or not, or whether he should actually run. I mean, everyone gets a right to run, right? Okay. But everybody, we as a people have a right to know that the justice system isn't just ignoring stuff because of who he is or because he's a loud voice. And believe me, he's a hornet's nest. You do anything against him, he's out screaming like a stuck pig for hours and days. Like you become the content forever. He twists, he turns. He's got a great public relations ability that he can turn anything try to turn it into a positive for himself. And that's what he's doing with all this talk about a witch hunt and all this other. But the other side of that coin is no one's above the law. No one. And I would prefer if he would just let's start facing some of these charges, settle them and win. If you're not guilty, you'll win. If it didn't happen, if it's a witch hunt and there's nothing there, you'll win. You've got the money for the attorneys and you've got the political clout. So what's with all the delaying? What's with all the trying to get everything thrown out? And my gosh, have they? Well, I'll tell you, I don't fault anybody for how they vote or what they did. But what I do ask is that everybody kind of open their eyes to some of the facts of this stuff. And instead of just poo-pooing it because someone says it's a witch hunt, try to see what it's about. Isn't that what we do? Yeah. I'd like to also note that the judge for this case is Tanya Chutkin, and she's already taken a lot of heat because she was appointed by a Democrat, of course, and they're going to make it party. Well, she's been fair. Like if you look at her judicial history, it's been pretty excellent. Okay. They're going to have a hard time. They've already tried to move things. She's got a hearing coming up this Friday in regards to some stuff. They've tried to toss the case. They've tried to do quite a bit of things. But she's moving things along and she doesn't want things stalled. And there's a lot in the media about it. It's quite entertaining reading back and forth. But she's pretty much an independent. Okay. And she's a tough judge. She's definitely a tough judge. So, there's more. There's more. Okay. This is an investigation, not charges. Although rumored next week it's going to drop because Fani Willis, Georgia District Attorney, has definitely put through a letter putting the court system, integrating everybody on notice that she's going to be bringing something in the first couple of weeks of August. And here we are in the first couple of weeks of August. Okay. Now, this Georgia election investigation is laid out quite nicely in everything that kind of happened. If you read the election interference in the January 6th insurrection charges against Donald Trump et al. From Jack Smith, it clearly lays out what happened in Georgia and many other states. But it was so offensive in Georgia, what they did, that that state is actually prosecuting based on, their ability for the violation of election law. Now, Trump's team put a motion to squash the special grand jury and disqualify the Fulton County DA's office entirely as to be prejudicial because they were involved in the other investigation, giving information and all kinds of things. But a judge ordered, nope, threw it out. Absolutely threw that out. Okay. And basically, there's actually part of this the special grand jury's report has been made public to show why there's due cause here to do it, because to actually get rid of this would be too favorable to the defending and not to the state. It would not be representing the people fairly. Okay, there is serious stuff going on here that needs to be answered for. And actually, the voting rights and the process in Georgia needs to be held up, and they have every right. Okay, so it would be too prejudicial to just say, oh, well, you've got other things going on. We're just going to get rid of this one for you. Nope, not going to happen. Okay, definitely not going to happen. This is all still in the investigation state. There's been no indictment yet. Okay, now, okay, let me just get to what her actual where did it go? Okay. They call it interference, the Georgia election interference investigation. It started and also claims that in December 2021 through January 21, that, Trump sought to overturn the results of the presidential election in the state of Georgia. 2 recounts confirmed that President Joe Biden narrowly prevailed in the race for the state's 16 electoral votes. But Trump and his allies spread lies about voter fraud, urged Georgia officials to reverse Biden's win, and plotted to send fake electors to Washington. Plotted to send fake electors to Washington. On January 2nd of 2021, Trump called Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and urged him to find 11,780 votes for Trump. And the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis, is leading this investigation into possible election meddling. It is still in the investigation process. Okay. It was opened in February of 2021 as a criminal investigation. And in January 2023, after hearing evidence for 7 months, a special grand jury released a report. Most of remains under seal. However, I do have a link to the publicly released part that is pertinent. And should you want that, contact me. I will send it. I may add it to the description because I think it's important and it is public information. Okay. They recommended potential indictments, and Willis must now ask a regular grand jury to approve any criminal charges that she plans to announce this summer, which she put that letter out. Okay. Now, there's only the possibility of charges here, and I will just list a couple of them for you. Solicitation to commit election fraud, conspiracy to commit election fraud, intentional interference with performance of election duties, interference with primaries and elections, false statements, perjury, influencing witnesses, racketeer influenced and corrupt organizations. Yay. And that racketeer influenced and corrupt organization plan to send fake electors to Washington. Okay. Yeah. The strengths of this case. His efforts to undo Georgia's results are blatant falsehoods about the election that were proved 3 times over. I mean, it's not like those investigations gave any credence to any of it. Like any of it. This is what makes it so hard to swallow that they keep moving forward with it. All right. These falsehoods were largely conducted out in the open. And his phone call to Raffensperger in particular was recorded and will more than likely end up as evidence if this goes to trial. 8 Republican activists who falsely claim to be the state's presidential electors for Trump have taken immunity deals and have agreed to cooperate with Fani Willis. the fake electors that were going to Washington to say that Biden didn't win Georgia? That's the big part of the crime right there. And the participants of that crime are giving evidence. That strength in a case. Weaknesses that the local prosecutor is charging a former president with election interference. And it's unprecedented. This never happened before. Okay? It's not in American history. He may claim that he's immune from being prosecuted because he was still president at the time. And that's going to be dicey because, we had that in E. Jean Carroll when the defamation statements were being seen. Well, are you actually working for the people when you try to defraud them? I think there might be an issue here on whether he's got immunity because he works for us, right? And I think in the Supreme Court rulings recently in regards to presidential immunity, they have said that we would be acting like the employer. And was he actually doing his duty? Was he? I think he's acting outside the scope of his responsibilities of president if he's breaking the law. But hey, that's for a court. That's for a court to decide. Not me. I'm just looking at it as a voter, as an offended person of the process. And I say that with all seriousness, an offended person of his disregard of the process. That's me here, offended that he just ignores the whole thing. Like, yeah. All right. He could also argue that his statements about the Georgia results are protected under the First Amendment. Yes, you're allowed to lie. You're allowed to lie, and you do have First Amendment freedom of speech. But again, I shall remind everyone on this planet that in the United States, you do have free speech. You do not have free speech without consequence. Okay, so read the whole statement. Context, people. Context matters. And yes, there are consequences for the things that you say. So yeah, you can lie to the people. It's not illegal to lie to the people. It's a lie. Committing fraud, that's another thing. Okay. All right. Another weakness is that many of the crimes that Trump could be charged with include intent elements. So we have to prove through his statements and his actions his state of mind. That may not be that difficult considering almost everything played out in the public. Trump can't keep his mouth shut. Trump gives the best evidence all of these prosecutors have against him came from him. Could you all agree? I mean, just about look at every case, and then, of course, we have the E. Jean Carroll case that I didn't add to this because, we just did that yesterday. But isn't it not his statements and actions, his own doing out in public and standing by it, that is actually the best evidence against him? Okay. I mean, he's going to say he generally thought that he won the election, regardless of all the investigations, regardless of all of the other information out there. He's only listening to certain people, and he really believed that he won. So, I mean, I could be a little snarky here and wonder if he's going to do an insanity plea to try to get out all of this stuff. But hey, that ain't going to fly. And that's like too low a blow. So I'm sorry, not sorry. Like, I had to say it because I actually thought it. So there you go. But on that, I hope I gave you more information on all of these charges that are coming up. On this one in particular for Georgia, who can prosecute, who can pardon him? Well, not the president, not himself. The only one who can pardon him in Georgia would be the governor of Georgia, but not even the governor of Georgia, because in Georgia, it's not the governor. It's the State Board of Pardons and Parolees, a 5-member panel appointed by the governor. Okay, he would, in Georgia, the only entity with the power to grant pardons or other forms of clemency is the State Board of Pardons and Paroles. That's it. Not even the governor. So he couldn't even, if they had a Republican governor or he was friends, whatever, they worked some kind of deal, he could not get a pardon. Trump's legal team on this one is Drew Findling and Jennifer Little. Key players in this investigation that we know about are Brad Raffensperger, David Schaefer, Mark Meadows, John Eastman, and Rudy Giuliani again. Okay. There are the documents. The judge is Robert McBurney, okay, who did release a public portion of the special grand jury's report to quell the witch hunt stuff that was going on, actually. And because he felt that the people, since this particular case also represents the people of Georgia, they needed to know they had a right to know what's going on. And I kind of agree, you know. Okay. The other thing about this is if this goes to trial, which they do want it to a speedy trial, I don't think that they're going to try to hold this up in any way, especially with an election coming forward in another year. If he is found guilty, if he's found guilty, I'm not saying he will be, but if he is, if they go forward with the charges, if they indict him and he has his trial and they get a verdict and, he's guilty, he can't be on the Georgia ballot. There's state law that says he can't be on the ballot if you're guilty of an election offense. Now, people could still write him in, but that does kind of eliminate those electorals from being as guaranteed, or as easy a process. It does kind of throw a monkey wrench into the process altogether. And I do wish more states had that ruling, but they don't. Because while he's criminally indicted, and yes, he's innocent until proven guilty, and I'm going to say that loudly, he is innocent until proven guilty in all of this, in all of the things we've talked about today. Okay, he's innocent until proven guilty. So he is going to be able to run. Okay, but once found guilty, if any of these charges go forward and he's found guilty, especially of espionage, document stealing, inciting riot, insurrection, stealing our vote against the people of the United States, if any of that is a conviction, should he be allowed? I ask you, should we have regulations that say you shouldn't be allowed to run for president? How can you represent our people when you violated all of this against our people? Against us, the United States, us, we the people. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I love the system, and yet it does have its problems. And I do think we need to look at some of this. We do absolutely need to look at it. If anything, the presidency of Donald J. Trump has brought more unprecedented issues, more things that have never happened before in our history to light. Unfortunately, quite a few of them are being charged as criminal. But I had to say, if it makes us look at the laws and get prepared so it doesn't happen again, then that's what we got to do. Well, anyway, let me look at the chat for some more questions before we carry on. I'm going to take this down. That was the last one. Okay, that I'm going to talk about today. Now, there are quite a few other investigations out there. There's some class action suits about investors. There's some real estate stuff going on. There's a lot of other things. Like I said, that one about The Apprentice, and there's quite a few others smaller. They don't look to be moving anywhere, so I didn't want to take up too much time talking about them. But when I tell you that there's like 23 active investigations and criminal charges and civil charges going on, there are, that number's solid. I counted it up again today. There was still 23, Yep. Okay, let's do some questions. Here. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm so far behind here. All right, Mark. If he is allowed to run, he'll try to turn this around. There's a pity plea to his supporters, and it could make him more popular. God, I hope he's found guilty and he can't run. In Georgia, he wouldn't be able to be on the ballot. He'd still run. I mean, even found guilty, it's going to be very difficult to keep him out. GOP erases lead paint restrictions after a $750,000 donation. After key donations, GOP tried to keep poison kids from suing lead paint. Yes, they did. And that is horrible, isn't it? Like, what happened to the greater good, right? It's all about who lines whose pockets. It's disgusting, Yep. And who is the she you guys are talking about? I got to go back far enough. I can only imagine. Oh, MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I love these. Okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the poster child for "This is your Congress on Ego." Yes. Yeah. It, she's contentious. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. I know. I'll tell you. I do agree. I see the conversation going on here. A lot of what's going on now in government as far as the Senate and the Congress is people are showing their colors on whether they represent for the people or whether they've got their own agendas. Agendas are becoming quite evident everywhere, wouldn't you say? And that's what I think, not only just to go over the real facts of these cases, okay, is important. Read the indictments, anything that you can in regards to what they're actually saying before we have to listen to all the rhetoric. And I do say that rhetoric, meaning the mass media and everyone, okay, because the left and the right are going to have opinions about it. But what's important is to gather up the information and decide for yourself. That's our process here in the United States. And it seems like more people are just going with whatever their party is saying instead of actually looking at the issues anymore. And I lament the loss of that mentality when that used to be the thing we did regardless of anything, no matter who said it. Our favorite president, anyone, a partner, anyone. Like we looked at the facts and everything and we just made our decisions on our own and you didn't just go with it. Loyalty is one thing. Blind loyalty is a dangerous and just very dangerous thing. Blind loyalty is fool's gold. The only one who wins is the one you're not really looking at accurately. I know. I'm off the soapbox. Sorry, guys. But yeah, anyway. All right. I hear you. Hey, Mippet. Hey, Mippet. I know everyone's looking at it. I see. What's really exciting is that you all are talking about so much in the chat, so much politically about stuff that is going on. I'm glad to see it. There's so many people are afraid to talk politics anymore. You don't have to be one side or the other. We'll just actually get the facts out there and talk about stuff in an open, respectful, and considerate way. I really promote that. I'm really thrilled about that. And I hope to see more of it when we come back at least once a week to do it. Okay, so this one was all about Trump in the cases, but we'll be talking about more stuff in regards to the Supreme Court and things that have been happening state by state all over. There's been some movement. Did you all see the actual vote yesterday in Ohio? That was good. That was good. It takes more than a certain amount of it's going to take a lot more people, a higher percentage wanting it before you can change the state's constitution, which is how it should be, because the state's constitution is regards to the people, the majority, and it needs to be a hefty majority. Okay. And then, it was very good. It was very good to see the people speak up and not get their rights taken away from them. Okay. Ohio was amazing, Carrie. I agree. It's like, no, Mrs. Cassandra, we don't want your governor. You're in California, right? Nope. I don't want either of those governors, the one from California or the one from Florida. I don't, not that I'm thrilled with mine. Like, who's thrilled with their governor? Really? It's kind of almost natural that we're going to have disagreements with what they're doing, Have you noticed that, Fishner? That makes me very happy. We've been here for an hour and a half. I'm gonna actually close up because someone that I do another series with, JL Warren, will be doing Week in Horror in about 4 minutes, and I don't want to interfere with your stream. I know some of my mods go over there, and some of my subscribers are his subscribers, and I like to be considerate when I can. I can't always, based on timing, but I'm gonna wrap up in a minute. And I like this, Fish Nerd. I have noticed that there is a political discussion and nobody has raised a fist in anger, and I'm all for it. I might make a snarky little humorous remark here and there based on my totally biased opinion in regards to some things political, but I do try to put out both sides of stuff here. When they charged Hunter Biden, I spoke about it, even though I thought it was kind of ridiculous that his laptop keeps coming up, but I did speak on it, you know. I did. I'm going to be fair, you know, when they do stupid stuff. Like I'm going to be fair, okay? You know, especially if there's criminal charges involved. But unfortunately, on this one for Donald Trump, there seems to be a lot more going on with him than anyone. And I don't want it to look like a witch hunt, but of course, if you get 1, 2, or 3, that's going to be a common thing that people say, you know. But look at the different types of charges and his statements in the evidence is all I ask. Read the indictments and go from that, okay? And just say, you know, I don't think this many people would waste all their time if it wasn't important. And for me, the important thing is that the justice system works and that no one is above the law, okay? No one. Now, we may have to temper when we file stuff because someone might be an active president, sitting president. And I, as I said before, I support that because we have to be able to function as a country and move forward. Okay. But now, right now, no, just because you want to be president doesn't make you immune from the process. And currently, just saying that you want to run for president, you're not even the candidate yet. You haven't been put in. Even if you are, it does not mean you're immune from the process, okay? You're not in there yet. And I think that people deserve to know all of this before. I don't know about you guys, but even if it was a Democrat, I wouldn't want to be voting for somebody I didn't know the whole picture on. You know, I want to see all of this play out. I think it's only fair. And it's only fair for him, too, to be considered not guilty if he's not, so that that's not even an issue anymore, right? Yeah, well, looks like they want to drag it through. All right. Anyway, thanks, guys. Thank you to my moderators. Thank you to everyone in the chat for the great conversation. I'm going to go back and read the conversations you were having with each other because they are quite enticing to me. I'm sorry I couldn't bring them up here and talk about all of these issues everywhere. But if you have things politically in your states that you want to talk about, remember I do library chats, and I'm willing to speak with anyone in regards to an issue as long as we present both sides of it and it doesn't turn into one of those, like Fish Nerd said, like raising the fist in the air kind of thing. If you're good with the way I do it and you want to join me and talk about an issue, you want to bring something from your state in particular forward, contact me. I've got political review in library chats that can do 1-on-1 or even 2 or 3 at a time. And we could go over all the issues. My DMs are open and I really want to just have these discussions. You know me, people, I love to talk and I want to keep talking. And I want to talk about the things you want to hear about too. Craven, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but if it's good, contact me. Okay. On that, thanks, guys. And thank you again, moderators, everyone in the chat, all of you that support me behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, and out here that you're watching. Thank you. Have a good day. I'll be back tomorrow with the challenge, same time, with JL Warren, Culture Cats, Patrick the Great, and Charlie Welch. Okay, thanks.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Justice requires us to remember when any citizen denies his fellow, saying his color, not mine, or his beliefs are strange and different. In that moment, he betrays America.
Be nice and patient and continue to pray. In 100 or 200 years, the problem will work itself out.
I believe that truth is the glue that holds government together. Not only our government, but civilization itself.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished, and the rights of one man are threatened.
America is never wholly herself unless she is engaged in high moral principle. We as a people have such a purpose today. It is to make kinder the face of the nation and gentler the face of the world.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
Through much of the last century, America's faith in freedom and democracy was a rock in a raging sea.
Starting today, we must pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and begin again the work of remaking America.